everyone. In Chapter 4, we're going to talk about ethical and socially responsible behavior. Ethics and legality are not the same thing. There are times when you can do something that would be perfectly legal, but is ethical. And there's times where you could do something that you think is ethical, but lo and behold, there's a law against it and it's illegal. The line is a little blurry at times, but it happens, and scandals have shaken every industry that you can think of, from real estate to mortgage to banking. And when these scandals happen, the general public does not look at a company and be like, oh, I get why they did. Like, if you're in the news for negative public headlines, it is going to destroy trust in your consumers. And then how can that trust be restored, not just in a company, but in this free market system overall? There need to be punishments for those who have broken any laws. There need to be more procedures to make accounting records, which are a big part of everybody's decision making, and my specialty, more transparent. And there needs to be a system in place at each and every business institution to teach employees to think about what is ethical, not just what can we do and what can't we do. And here we have a 2016 scandal from Wells Fargo. Before I start this, I want to talk about something that would be perfectly legal, at least at the time, but was unethical in my opinion. When I was a freshman in college, the minimum age that you only had to be to get a credit card was 18 years old. And the first week of classes, when I stepped foot onto SUNY Oneonta's campus, there was legitimately credit card companies there just handing out super high interest rate cards with like a $500 limit to any student that wanted to sign up. You're 18 years old. You're on your own for the first time. Someone says, would you like to have a card that's going to let you have $500 to buy stuff for your dorm room, etc.? You're going to say yes. People were not, especially that age, are not well educated about the dangers that come with credit cards. That was perfectly legal at the time, but in my opinion, it wasn't ethical. And the government apparently agreed with me, because in 2008, President Obama, one of the first things he did in office was to pass the CARD Act, which raised the minimum age to get a credit card up to 21. While that was something of a little bit of gray ethics when it comes to credit cards, here's something that it absolutely is not. Wells Fargo in 2016 was fined $185 million because it was found out that they had made 1.5 million fake accounts and handed out $500,000 of fraudulent credit cards in customers' names without their knowledge. People working at Wells Fargo got bonuses for cross-platform performance, if you will. Wells Fargo is a all-encompassing financial institution. They do mortgages, they do student loans, they have credit cards in their name, and their people would get bonuses for getting customers to expand upon the services that they got from Wells Fargo. If you had a mortgage there, why don't you get a Wells Fargo credit card? Well, they already had all the information for people at the time, their credit scores, their debt-to-income ratio, all the stuff that you need for credit cards, so they knew who was pre-approved for credit cards. And the people, the salesmen there, were legitimately taking information from customers who they knew would be approved for credit cards and signing them up for a credit card without their consent. Not putting charges on it or anything, but doing this so they would get that bonus for encouraging that cross-platform banking that they had. When this came to light, it definitely destroyed confidence in Wells Fargo. And on a bigger spectrum, it also hurt, the public's confidence in large banks in general. Wells Fargo is not alone. Just in the last 20, 30 years, tons of industries have been rocked by scandal. Enron and WorldCom kind of had a similar setup. What they were doing is they were financing stuff by taking out loans and then not disclosing those loans to people looking at their financial information. So lenders, stockholders, etc., all thought, oh, these companies are making tons of money and they've got very little debt. They're killing it. No, they're not. They had a whole bunch of loans that never made their way to their balance sheet in their financial records. There's falsely stated revenues for both of these companies where they were putting revenues on the books that they expected to earn, but they hadn't actually earned yet. That's also super illegal. when this came to light, there were just losses upon losses for people who owned shares in these companies, and their CEOs and CFOs ended up doing an extended period of time in jail. Some more scandals we have over here. Tyco makes a bunch of toys. Their CEO and their CFO were taking out loans from the company, not disclosing to anybody or not having these checked that they were taking out these loans. They were just putting it as loans from somebody else besides loans to the officers, with no intent to ever repay them. So they essentially embezzled $150 million from Tyco. When that came to light, again, they both went to jail. The company itself had to pay billions of dollars to investors for the loss of confidence, because when the public loses confidence in a company, they don't want to be owners of that company. Therefore, stock price bombs, and that's what happened to Tyco. Freddie Mac, Lehman Brothers also had major accounting scandals which rocked confidence in their company because they were acting unethically. And Bernie Madoff is one of the best scandals ever, as you can see from the result over there. That is not a typo. He was sentenced to 150 years in jail in order to pay $170 billion to the people that he defrauded. What was Bernie Madoff doing? He was one of the world's greatest investors. You gave Bernie Madoff money to invest in the stock market, and he supposedly made you more money than anybody else possibly could. Well, the problem with this is he wasn't really making money. He had a Ponzi scheme, or a pyramid scheme, if you've heard of it. Mr. Madoff was taking money from investors, spending it on himself, but saying that he was investing it in order to earn them returns. And then when the new people came in to this pyramid that he was building, this investment agency, the money they were giving Mr. Madoff to start up their investment account, he was actually turning around and paying out to the people that were there before. So he wasn't actually investing and earning returns. He was just paying people with other people's money and pocketing a good portion of it. $64.8 billion he stole from this. I find this one to be especially entertaining because Professor Wittenberg here at MVCC was one of the auditors that audited Bernie Madoff's records. So if you're very interested in this scandal, he is a great party to ask. And if you want a little more reference, there's a link to a YouTube video with more of the specifics on the Bernie Madoff pyramid scheme. I highly advise you to watch it if you have a minute. I find it to be very entertaining. But our matter at hand here is ethics. And ethics is defined as a standard of moral behavior that is accepted by society as right versus wrong, which is, again, a bit of a gray area. People really don't have moral absolutes, and not everybody agrees ethically on the same situation. Is it legal or is it not legal? What is ethical in terms of society differs from society to society. I'm not going to really go into politics, but there are some areas of the world where a woman working is not something ethical for her husband to let her do, which is a little ridiculous, but that is the culture that they have. In general, ethics is borrowed, that's the word I'm looking for, from religion's golden rule. Do unto others as you would want done unto you. So what is unethical behavior? Well, it could be all sorts of things. If you are in the office, it is goofing off because everybody else is working hard and to earn their pay. If you're not, you're basically just leeching, for the lack of a better term, off of their performance, purposely violating safety standards, which are going to put other people at risk when you could have got around it. Both unethical decisions to make. Personal. We have most people do not volunteer. See, that's a gray area. In some people's mind, if you are a person who is well-to-do, you are wealthy, and you're not giving back to the community, or you're not volunteering your time to the community to make things better for people around you with the resources that you have, that is unethical behavior. And at school, plagiarizing is definitely considered both unethical and illegal behavior. Please don't plagiarize on any of your assignments. If that happens, that is grounds for expulsion from the college. And also, it's not a great thing to have on your record that it happened, because studies have found a strong relationship between academic dishonesty when you are in college and future dishonesty in the workplace. So if you're going to an employer and they want your transcripts from college and they see that you were expelled for academic integrity issues, they're going to believe that it's more likely than not that same thing will pop up in the workplace if they hire you. So if you have an ethical dilemma, you have a choice between a couple of different alternatives. Should I do this or should I not do this? And the best way to resolve what's the best decision is to ask yourself these three following questions. Is my action that I'm thinking about legal? If it's not, then you should definitely not do it. If it is, that doesn't mean it's okay to do just because it's legal. You need to think further. Is it balanced? And that means every stakeholder in your decision. If you are running a business, that could be your employees, your customers, your vendors, the other businesses you do business with, the people in your area. Are you looking out for the best interest of everyone instead of just one party? And then lastly, you don't need to overthink things. Something is easily seen as unethical if it violates that golden rule. If you think about it, if what I'm planning on doing was going to happen to me, how would it make me feel? And if I do this, how am I going to feel about it myself? If it's something you don't want to have happen to you, it's probably not something you should be willing to do to others.